Most people don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because they keep trying to build a future with the same habits that broke their past. They want better results without becoming a better version of themselves. And life doesn't work that way. At some point, you have to stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what am I becoming because of it? Because every challenge you face is either shaping you by default or by design. The difference lies in whether you choose to rebuild or remain the same. There comes a moment in every life when excuses lose their power, when blaming circumstances no longer brings comfort, when motivation fades, but the need for change becomes impossible to ignore. That moment is not dramatic, it's quiet. It happens when you realize that if nothing changes within you, nothing will change around you. Rebuilding yourself is not about fixing what is wrong with you. It is about strengthening what is right and correcting what no longer serves you. It is about tearing down weak habits, outdated beliefs, and borrowed limitations and replacing them with discipline, clarity, and purpose. Today is not about inspiration. It is about decision, because the life you want is waiting on the person you are willing to become. Personal responsibility is the moment a person realizes that life does not respond to wishes, complaints, or intentions. It responds to decisions. It is the understanding that results are not accidents, they are consequences. Every circumstance, whether favorable or difficult, is connected in some way to choices made knowingly or unknowingly. When someone accepts this, they stop seeing themselves as a victim of life and begin to see themselves as a participant in it. This shift is not about guilt or self-criticism. It is about reclaiming power. Blame weakens, responsibility strengthens. Many people spend years waiting for conditions to improve, believing that success, confidence, or happiness will arrive once something external changes. But personal responsibility removes the dependency on outside forces. It says that even if the situation is unfair, unclear, or uncomfortable, the response still belongs to the individual. Two people can experience the same setback, yet produce entirely different outcomes based on how they choose to respond. One complains, the other adjusts. One retreats, the other rebuilds. The difference is not talent or luck, but ownership. Taking responsibility requires brutal honesty. It means admitting that procrastination delayed progress, that poor habits drained energy, that avoidance created stagnation. This honesty is uncomfortable because it removes excuses, and excuses are emotionally convenient. However, excuses also freeze growth. The moment someone stops explaining why they cannot improve and starts asking how they can, movement begins. Responsibility does not deny hardship, it simply refuses to surrender to it. When a person embraces personal responsibility, their language changes. Words like if only, they should, and I can't because slowly disappear. Instead, phrases such as I will, I can learn, and I need to improve take their place. Language shapes identity, and identity shapes behavior. A responsible person no longer waits to feel ready, they act in order to become ready. They understand that confidence is not a prerequisite for action, but a result of it. Responsibility also demands patience. Results rarely change overnight, and rebuilding takes time. A responsible person does not quit simply because progress is slow. They understand that the same small decisions that created their current life will also create the next one, whether positive or negative. Daily discipline becomes more important than dramatic effort. One honest hour of focused work repeated consistently outweighs occasional bursts of intensity driven by emotion. Another aspect of responsibility is recognizing personal influence. Even when circumstances are limited, attitude is not. A person may not control the economy, their upbringing, or other people's behavior, but they always control their standards. Standards determine what is tolerated, pursued, and corrected. When standards rise, behavior follows. A responsible individual does not negotiate with their values depending on convenience. They do what needs to be done because it needs to be done. Personal responsibility also improves relationships. When someone stops blaming others for their emotional state, communication becomes clearer and conflict becomes more manageable. Instead of reacting, they respond. Instead of accusing, they reflect. This does not mean accepting mistreatment. It means choosing maturity over emotional chaos. Responsibility creates respect, both self-respect and respect from others. There is also a quiet confidence that comes with responsibility. It is not arrogance or superiority, but certainty. The certainty that regardless of what happens, adjustment is possible. This confidence is built through repeated proof, showing oneself that challenges can be handled, lessons can be learned, and progress can be made even after failure. Each time responsibility is chosen, self-trust grows. Without personal responsibility, rebuilding is impossible. Improvement requires ownership, and ownership requires courage. It is far easier to criticize circumstances than to correct behavior. It is far easier to point outward than to look inward. But growth has never been easy. It has always been intentional. Responsibility is the foundation upon which discipline, learning, and transformation stand, because without it, effort lacks direction and change lacks permanence. Self-awareness is the ability to see yourself clearly without distortion, without excuses, and without unnecessary self-judgment. It is not about criticism, it is about clarity. Most people move through life reacting automatically, guided by habits, emotions, and beliefs they have never questioned. Self-awareness interrupts that pattern. It slows you down enough to notice why you think the way you think, why you act the way you act, and why certain results keep repeating. Without this awareness, change becomes guesswork, because you cannot improve what you refuse to examine. The rebuilding process begins the moment a person is willing to observe themselves honestly. This means recognizing strengths without exaggeration and weaknesses without denial. Many people either inflate their abilities to protect their ego or diminish themselves out of fear. Both extremes block growth. Self-awareness creates balance. It allows a person to say, "This is where I am right now," without attaching shame or pride to the statement. That neutrality is powerful because it opens the door to improvement rather than defense. One of the hardest parts of self-awareness is recognizing patterns. Patterns reveal truth. If a person keeps starting but never finishing, keeps planning but never executing, keeps blaming others for the same outcomes, the issue is not external, it is internal. Self-awareness connects behavior to results. It exposes how small daily choices shape long-term outcomes. When someone notices that distraction replaces focus, comfort replaces discipline, or fear replaces action, they begin to understand why progress feels stuck. Emotional awareness is a critical part of this process. Many decisions are driven by emotion rather than intention. Frustration leads to quitting, comfort leads to procrastination, and fear leads to avoidance. A self-aware person does not suppress emotions, but they also do not obey them blindly. They recognize emotions as signals, not commands. By observing emotional triggers, a person gains control over their responses instead of being controlled by reactions. Self-awareness also reveals personal limitations, and this is where humility becomes essential. Everyone has blind spots. Everyone has areas where knowledge is lacking or discipline is weak. Pretending otherwise only delays growth. When someone acknowledges their limitations, they can seek learning, guidance, or practice. Awareness turns weakness into a starting point rather than a stopping point. Another important dimension of self-awareness is understanding values. Many people feel unfulfilled because their actions conflict with what truly matters to them. They chase approval instead of purpose, money instead of meaning, speed instead of quality. Self-awareness helps align actions with values. When a person knows what they stand for, decision-making becomes clearer and life feels more intentional rather than chaotic. Self-awareness also affects how time is used. When someone becomes aware of how hours are spent, illusions disappear. They begin to see how much time is lost to distraction, avoidance, or unproductive habits. This awareness is uncomfortable, but it is also motivating. It replaces vague frustration with specific insight. Once a person knows where time goes, they can choose where it should go. Growth accelerates when self-awareness is paired with reflection. Reflection turns experience into wisdom. Instead of repeating mistakes, a self-aware person asks what went wrong, what went right, and what can be done differently next time. Life becomes a teacher rather than a burden. Even failure becomes useful because it provides feedback rather than shame. Self-awareness also strengthens character. When someone is aware of their tendencies, they can design better systems for themselves. If focus is weak, they reduce distractions. If discipline is inconsistent, they create structure. This is not self-control through force, but through understanding. Awareness leads to intelligent adjustment rather than constant self-conflict. Without self-awareness, rebuilding becomes superficial. People try to change outcomes without changing behavior, habits, or thinking. They chase motivation instead of clarity. But when a person truly sees themselves, rebuilding becomes precise. Effort is directed where it matters most. Progress becomes intentional rather than accidental. Awareness becomes the mirror that guides transformation from the inside out. Discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when emotions argue otherwise. Motivation is emotional, temporary, and unreliable. It rises when conditions are favorable and disappears when discomfort appears. Discipline, on the other hand, is a decision repeated daily. It does not wait for inspiration. It creates results first and feelings later. When rebuilding yourself, discipline becomes essential because progress depends on consistency, not intensity. Many people wait to feel motivated before they act, but this approach puts emotions in control. Emotions change quickly and often without reason. A disciplined person understands that feelings are not a trustworthy guide for action. They recognize that action creates motivation, not the other way around. Once movement begins, momentum follows. Discipline removes the need for constant internal negotiation and replaces it with structure and routine. Discipline begins with small commitments. Grand plans collapse without simple habits to support them. Waking up on time, honoring promises made to oneself, finishing what was started, these behaviors strengthen self-respect. Every time a person keeps a small promise, they reinforce their identity as someone who can be trusted. Over time, this trust builds confidence far more effectively than temporary bursts of enthusiasm. The power of discipline lies in repetition. A single productive day changes little, but repeated productive days change everything. Discipline transforms ordinary actions into extraordinary results through accumulation. Reading a few pages daily builds knowledge. Exercising consistently builds strength. Practicing a skill regularly builds mastery. None of these actions feel dramatic in the moment, but their long-term effect is undeniable. Discipline understands the math of progress even when emotions do not. Discipline also protects focus. In a world full of distraction, the ability to concentrate has become rare and valuable. Motivation is easily distracted. Discipline is selective. A disciplined person designs their environment to support focus rather than test willpower constantly. They limit distractions, set boundaries, and choose priorities intentionally. This is not about restriction but about direction. Another important aspect of discipline is the willingness to endure discomfort. Growth always requires leaving comfort behind. Discipline accepts discomfort as part of progress rather than a sign to stop. It understands that boredom, fatigue, and frustration are temporary, but regret lasts much longer. By acting despite discomfort, discipline builds mental strength, which becomes useful in every area of life. Discipline also brings clarity. When habits are consistent, decision-making becomes simpler. Energy is not wasted on debating whether to act. The routine decides. This frees mental space for creativity, learning, and problem-solving. Discipline does not eliminate freedom. It creates it by reducing chaos. Failures do not destroy discipline. Inconsistency does. A disciplined person does not quit after a mistake. They resume. They understand that perfection is not required, but persistence is. Missing one day is not the problem. Missing the decision to return is. Discipline is flexible enough to recover, but firm enough to continue. Over time, discipline reshapes identity. A person no longer sees themselves as someone who tries, but as someone who does. This shift is powerful. Identity influences behavior automatically. When discipline becomes part of identity, effort feels less forced and more natural. Actions align with standards rather than moods. Discipline also multiplies results in other areas. Improved health increases energy. Increased energy improves focus. Better focus improves performance. Performance increases confidence. All of this begins with discipline, not motivation. Motivation may start the journey, but discipline finishes it. Rebuilding yourself demands reliability. Discipline provides that reliability when excitement fades and challenges appear. It is the quiet force that moves progress forward when no one is watching and no applause is given. Through daily discipline, effort compounds, character strengthens, and results eventually appear, not as a surprise but as a consequence. Learning and growth are the foundation of lasting change because life rarely improves beyond the level of the mind directing it. Income, confidence, decision-making, and leadership all reflect what a person knows, believes, and practices. When learning stops, growth slows, and when growth slows, life begins to feel repetitive and limiting. Rebuilding yourself requires a commitment to continuous learning, not as a phase, but as a lifestyle. Learning begins with the realization that current knowledge has produced current results. This awareness is not discouraging, it is clarifying. If better results are desired, better thinking is required. Growth does not demand knowing everything, only knowing more than yesterday. Small improvements in understanding can dramatically shift direction over time. A new idea, when applied consistently, can change habits, choices, and outcomes. True learning goes beyond information consumption. Many people read, listen, and watch without applying anything. Growth happens only when knowledge turns into behavior. Learning must be active, not passive. It involves reflection, experimentation, and adjustment. When a person studies a concept and then tests it in real life, wisdom begins to form. Without application, learning becomes entertainment rather than transformation. Learning also requires humility. A person must accept that there is more to know and that others may possess insights they do not. Ego blocks growth by convincing someone they already understand enough. Humility opens the door to mentors, books, experiences, and feedback. A growing person does not feel threatened by learning from others. They feel strengthened by it. Growth often feels uncomfortable because it challenges identity. New information may contradict old beliefs, habits, or assumptions. This discomfort is a sign of expansion, not weakness. A person committed to growth does not resist this tension, they examine it. They question their assumptions and update their thinking when necessary. Growth demands flexibility, not stubbornness. Learning also sharpens awareness. As knowledge increases, perception changes. Problems that once felt overwhelming become solvable. Opportunities that were invisible become obvious. A person who invests in learning begins to see patterns, connections, and possibilities others miss. This clarity improves decision-making and reduces anxiety because uncertainty decreases when understanding increases. Growth is also cumulative. Just as discipline compounds through daily action, learning compounds through consistent study. 10 minutes of focused learning daily becomes hours of insight over time. Reading a few pages each day builds a library of ideas. Listening to thoughtful perspectives during routine activities turns idle time into investment time. Growth rarely requires massive time blocks. It requires consistency. Learning also improves communication. As understanding deepens, expression becomes clearer. A person who learns how to think learns how to speak. Ideas are articulated with confidence and precision. This improves relationships, leadership, and influence. Growth in knowledge often leads to growth in presence. Another essential part of growth is learning from experience. Life constantly provides lessons, but not everyone learns from them. A growing person reflects on outcomes, identifies causes, and extracts principles. They ask what worked, what didn't, and why. Experience without reflection leads to repetition. Experience with reflection leads to wisdom. Learning also protects against stagnation. The world changes, industries evolve, and expectations shift. Those who stop learning fall behind, not because they are incapable, but because they are unprepared. Growth keeps a person adaptable. Adaptability creates relevance, and relevance creates opportunity. A commitment to learning also strengthens self-belief. Each new skill acquired, each concept understood, each problem solved adds evidence of capability. Confidence grows not from positive thinking, but from proven competence. Growth builds this competence step by step. Rebuilding yourself through learning is not about collecting credentials or impressing others. It is about sharpening the mind that directs your life. When learning becomes a habit, growth becomes inevitable, and when growth becomes inevitable, improvement becomes a matter of time rather than chance. Letting go of the past is one of the most difficult yet necessary steps in rebuilding yourself, because the past has a way of silently shaping identity, decisions, and expectations. Many people believe they have moved on simply because time has passed, but time alone does not release emotional weight. Unresolved experiences, failures, regrets, and labels continue to influence behavior long after the event is over. Letting go does not mean forgetting what happened or pretending it did not matter. It means refusing to let it define who you are becoming. The past often becomes heavy because people attach meaning to it. A failure becomes proof of incompetence. A rejection becomes evidence of unworthiness. A mistake becomes a permanent label. Over time, these interpretations harden into beliefs, and beliefs quietly guide actions. When someone believes they are not good enough because of what happened before, they aim lower, hesitate more, and avoid risk. Letting go requires separating the event from the identity. What happened was an experience, not a verdict. Holding on to the past also drains energy. Mental energy is finite, and when a large portion of it is consumed by replaying old moments, little remains for growth. Regret, resentment, and guilt keep attention anchored backward. A person may physically live in the present, but mentally exist years behind. Letting go frees attention, and attention is the currency of progress. Where attention goes, effort follows. Many people resist letting go because the past feels familiar. Even pain can become comfortable when it is known. The unknown future feels risky, while the past feels predictable, even if it was unpleasant. Letting go requires courage because it means stepping into uncertainty without old stories for protection. It requires trusting that a new identity can be built without constant reference to old wounds. Another challenge is forgiveness, both of others and of oneself. Unforgiven experiences keep emotional ties intact. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as approval or forgetting, but it is neither. It is a decision to stop paying a mental and emotional price for something that cannot be changed. When a person forgives themselves, they stop demanding perfection from their past self, using the knowledge of their present self. Growth makes old mistakes look obvious, but at the time, choices were made with limited awareness. Letting go also means releasing outdated versions of yourself. Who you were during a difficult chapter may not be who you are now. Carrying an old identity into a new season creates conflict. A person who once struggled may continue to act like they are still struggling even after circumstances improve. Letting go allows identity to update. Growth requires permission to evolve without guilt. There is also a practical side to releasing the past. Old habits, routines, and environments often reinforce old thinking. Letting go may involve changing surroundings, reducing contact with influences that anchor old behavior, or breaking patterns that no longer serve growth. This is not abandonment, it is alignment. A person cannot rebuild while standing in the same mental structure that produced collapse. Letting go does not erase lessons. In fact, it preserves them more clearly. When emotional attachment fades, clarity increases. The past becomes a teacher instead of a burden. Lessons are extracted, principles are formed, and the emotional charge dissolves. This allows wisdom to remain without pain attached. Many people fear that letting go means losing motivation, as if pain is the only fuel for progress. But pain-driven growth is unstable. Sustainable growth comes from purpose, not punishment. Letting go replaces emotional pressure with intentional direction. It allows action to come from choice rather than reaction. Rebuilding yourself requires space, and space is created by release. Old narratives, old excuses, old self-judgments occupy room that new habits and beliefs need. Letting go is not weakness. It is precision. It is choosing what no longer deserves mental rent. When the past no longer controls interpretation of the present, decisions become clearer, confidence becomes steadier, and effort becomes more focused. Daily improvement is the quiet discipline of becoming slightly better today than you were yesterday. It is not dramatic, fast, or attention-seeking, but it is powerful because it works with consistency rather than intensity. Many people overestimate what can be achieved in a short time and underestimate what can be achieved through small, repeated actions. Rebuilding yourself depends on this principle because lasting change is rarely the result of one major decision. It is the result of many minor ones made consistently. The idea of daily improvement removes pressure. Instead of trying to change everything at once, the focus shifts to manageable progress. One better choice, one corrected habit, one improved effort. This approach reduces overwhelm and increases follow-through. When goals feel too large, action is delayed. When improvement feels achievable, action becomes natural. Small steps lower resistance, and lower resistance increases consistency. Daily improvement also builds momentum. Progress creates motivation, not the other way around. When a person sees evidence of growth, even in small amounts, belief strengthens. That belief fuels further action. Over time, these small gains compound. What felt insignificant in a single day becomes impressive over months and undeniable over years. Compounding works quietly, but it works relentlessly. Consistency matters more than perfection in daily improvement. Missing a day is not failure, quitting is. A person committed to daily improvement does not aim for flawless execution, but for reliable effort. They understand that life will interrupt routines, energy will fluctuate, and motivation will dip. What matters is the decision to return. Improvement is a long conversation with yourself, not a one-time agreement. Daily improvement sharpens awareness. When progress is tracked mentally or practically, patterns emerge. A person begins to notice what actions produce results and which ones waste time. This awareness leads to refinement. Effort becomes smarter, not just harder. Over time, unnecessary habits fall away and effective ones strengthen. Another powerful aspect of daily improvement is identity reinforcement. Every small action sends a message about who you are. Reading a few pages reinforces the identity of a learner. Exercising briefly reinforces the identity of someone who values health. Writing a paragraph reinforces the identity of a creator. Identity grows through evidence, and daily improvement supplies that evidence consistently. Daily improvement also builds resilience. When progress is measured daily, setbacks feel smaller. A bad day does not erase months of effort. Perspective improves because progress is viewed as a trend, not a moment. This reduces emotional extremes. Success does not create arrogance, and failure does not create despair. Balance replaces volatility. The simplicity of daily improvement makes it sustainable. It does not require perfect conditions, high energy, or ideal timing. It only requires intention. Even on difficult days, something small can be done. This flexibility keeps progress alive even during challenging periods. A person who improves daily never truly stops moving forward, even when life slows them down. Daily improvement also encourages patience. It trains the mind to respect process over instant results. This patience reduces frustration and increases endurance. A person learns to trust that effort, when applied consistently, will eventually produce outcomes. This trust prevents impulsive quitting and reckless decision-making. Over time, daily improvement creates confidence rooted in reality. Confidence grows from knowing that you show up regularly, not from hoping things will work out. Each day becomes a vote in favor of the person you are becoming. This steady accumulation of evidence creates quiet self-belief. Rebuilding yourself through daily improvement is not about speed, it is about direction. As long as the direction is correct and effort is consistent, progress is inevitable. Small actions repeated daily reshape habits, habits reshape character, and character reshapes life. As we come to the end, remember this: rebuilding yourself is not a one-time event, it is a lifelong commitment. It begins with taking responsibility, continues with honest self-awareness, is sustained by discipline, strengthened through learning, protected by letting go of the past, and completed through daily improvement. None of these require perfection, but all of them require intention. You do not rebuild by waiting for the right moment, you rebuild by deciding that this moment is enough to begin. Every day gives you raw materials, time, choice, effort. What you build with them is up to you. You can repeat what is familiar, or you can construct something stronger. The future does not respond to wishes or regrets, it responds to preparation. When you rebuild yourself from the inside, life begins to reorganize on the outside. You are not here to remain the person you were yesterday. You are here to grow, to refine, and to rise. The process may be slow, and the work may be quiet, but the results will speak louder than words. I wish you the courage to release what holds you back, the discipline to do what must be done, and the patience to trust the process. May your efforts compound, your confidence strengthen, and your vision expand.